ahead and continue on with third-year football coach Brian Polian and his class.
Third year. Feels like 12th. Congratulations to Coach Price and to our soccer program on the job that they did today. I know it doesn't matter the sport, recruiting's recruiting, and that it's not easy, and there's a lot of sacrifices that go into it, and we congratulate them on their job today. Excuse me. Just want to open with a couple of thank yous. Thank you to our coaches who I thought did a tremendous job in putting this class together. A lot of travel, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of time away from your families, and I thought they did a really, really good job. While we're on the subject of families, thank you to the wives and to the children of our coaches who have to watch their dads go away for long stretches of time. I feel like I haven't seen my family in the better part of 3 weeks here, and it's a unique job that we do, but it's incredibly rewarding. However, we wouldn't be able to do it without the understanding of those around us who get that sometimes during the year we need to be away from our own, and we appreciate that. Zamudio's Twitter just rang on my phone. I apologize for that. Thank you to our support staff. Without their help, we wouldn't be able to do this. I think specifically of strength and conditioning, the amount of time that they spend presenting to our recruits the equipment room, the video production, the academic support staff, admissions, all the people on campus. Thank you to the faculty and staff who donate their time and are so generous with us when they come in on weekends and meet with our prospective student athletes to talk about what a great university this is. Thank you to Linda Burkhart in our office for everything that she does. Everybody read, I'm sure, around the bowl that we lost Andy Vaughn, otherwise known as Juice around these parts, to Nebraska. They got a good one. We miss him. His fingerprints are all over this class. He did a terrific job. To fill Andy's job, we are going to promote from within, and Joda Wolf took over that operation, and that was baptism by fire, and I thought he did a fantastic job, excuse me, down the stretch here in his support role in putting this class together. This class, obviously geographically diverse again, I believe 7 states and 1 Canadian province. We're excited by that. I think also on the topic of where they're coming from, this is the 2nd year in a row that we've been able to sign a local player to a full scholarship, and we're very excited about that, the ability to keep the best ones at home here in northern Nevada. We've addressed some needs, there's no doubt. Linebacker specifically was a need. We signed 3 good ones. Cornerback was a need, and I'm very excited about the 2 that joined us today. And with the loss of Patrick Clifford to his retirement, tight end became a need at a time when we didn't think it was going to be. So we had gone through all of spring and summer and early fall recruiting. We weren't going to, our thought process was if we could find a great one, we'd take him, but it wasn't a need, and then all of a sudden it came to be, and we discovered a guy that we are really excited about. I'm sure if you've been following along, you saw that we got much bigger at wide receiver, which I was wanting to do. After Hassan went down with the injury, which affected us a great deal last season, when Kendall Brock was out there with Jericho and Richie, we were not very tall. We just weren't. And I wanted to address that, and clearly with 6'1" and 6'4" in this class, we're able to do that. We had 6 guys with Power 5 offers, which I do think matters. I've said over and over the stars and the rankings and all that stuff doesn't matter, but I do think when you compete against schools in the Pac-12 and from other Power 5 conferences, and you can win a battle or two like that, I do think that is a big deal. And there are some guys, I wrote down in a quote about one player specifically, there are some developmental guys in the class, and that's what the Mountain West is. That's who we are, frankly, in the Mountain, even in relation to our own conference. We are a player development school. We're the kind of place that takes clay and we mold it. And I actually commented on one player. I think this is a guy that Coach Alt would have loved. That you get this 6'5", 265-pound athlete, and Manogue gets paid to make him bigger. But we see, there's a frame and there's athletic ability, and there's some young guys that we think have bright futures. The best thing about this class, and this is 2 years in a row that I'm proud to say this, these are good kids. These are really good kids. We say around here all the time, OKGs, our kind of guys. And these are really good kids with good families. The process recruiting the vast majority of this class was fun. It was honest. It was open. I enjoyed the vast majority of the recruiting that we did this year. Even with some guys that we didn't get, the lines of communication were always open. Nobody was trying to deceive anybody else. We always knew what was happening so that we could have the next step in place. And I appreciate that. And a lot of that has to do with, there's an old saying, apple trees make apples. We've recruited a bunch of really good kids, and we're able to do that because they have great parents and great mentors and great role models in their lives. A lot of great high school coaches that we dealt with that were fantastic through this. There really wasn't too much craziness. There was not like in other years. There was one or two that came down to the end, but that's recruiting. That's okay. There's no issue with that. There's kind of a deal in recruiting. Do you walk out of a house? Do you walk out of a high school coach's office? Do you read a tweet, something like that? And in recruiting, often you can feel icky. You just you come out of the house and say, you know what, I need a shower. But that only happened once or twice in this process. And actually, I give our assistant coaches a lot of credit for that, because you got to identify the right type of kids, and I think we're able to do that. As we sit here today, we're not done yet. We've got 2 scholarships that we're going to use. We're going to use a scholarship for another defensive back and or a skill player. And we've already identified a couple of guys and have begun conversations. There's no rule that says you have to use them all on signing day. And we were not going to roll the dice on somebody that we didn't know just to fill up the quota on signing day. It doesn't make any sense. It's too important. So you will get an announcement in probably 2 to 3 weeks about, hey, we've added another one to our class. I think we do need to address a D-line spot. I don't think I'm talking out of school when, we were a finalist for a guy that had a bunch of really nice offers. At this point, I don't think we got him. I'm not sure it's done yet, but I don't think we got him. So that leaves a D-line spot, and we will address that spot moving forward. That might be a junior college player. That might be a player that went to prep school. For that matter, it might be a fifth-year transfer from another program. But we will address it. I'm not panicked about it at all. In fact, I told everybody today, take a deep breath. I'm really excited about the guys that want to be here, and we'll address those two needs and feel just fine about it. The last thing I do want to talk about before I talk to kids, we had a event the last Saturday of recruiting, so it would have been last Saturday, where we hosted a day for non-scholarship prospects, a walk-on day. And I was so excited to see how many local student athletes came out for it. I can't mention them by name, as that would be an NCAA violation, but I can assure you, as always, our recruiting starts here at home first, and we identified who we thought was scholarship worthy in this class, but there are a bunch of guys locally that we would love to have join our program, and we got to spend a bunch of time with them on Saturday, and I'm hopeful that some of those young men will choose to go that route, because I think in 2 years we've rewarded 6 or 7 scholarships to walk-on players. If you come in and earn it, we'll reward you, and we always want that to start here at home. So it was good to see a bunch of local guys here with us over the weekend. Just like I did last year, this is a long process, and I appreciate your patience, but a lot of our families of these prospects are watching this right now on the internet, and we ought to talk about each guy for a second or two. And so I'm going to go right down the list. You may look at this and say it's not a very big class. I want to remind everybody that we signed more than we had available last year, and we gray-shirted 4 players. Those gray shirts are actually in this recruiting class. Those scholarships counted out of this class. So while you may say they only signed 14 or 15 NLIs today, that does not mean that the class is only 14 or 15 deep. In fact, Clifford Porter, who joined us here from Hug at the mid-year, who is now 6'5", 270, and we're going to move to offensive line. He'll go to offensive tackle. He's with us. Victor Gonzalez, who was a gray shirt that I could not talk about last year. So Victor Gonzalez is a wide receiver from the Inland Empire who we discovered at our Friday Night Lights camp 2 summers ago, who ran sub 4.5 on about 7 watches. He's a 6'1", 170-pound wide receiver. At the time, he was probably 155, hence the gray shirt. We wanted to buy him another 6 months to try and eat some food and grow a little bit, but he's fast, and we're excited to have him in the program. Kelton Moore, who we did introduce last year, joins us in January for the first time. Kelton's now 5'11", 215, and he's going to go to running back. And then the last one is Christian Solano from L.A., who we did introduce last year, but now joins us in January. He's a 6'1", 180-pound quarterback. So those guys are technically freshmen in this class. Even though we discovered them and locked them up last year, they're actually in this class. I'm just going to go right down the line in terms of the list. I'll just go alphabetically. Dameon Baber was a guy that we had discovered actually last summer at a camp. We fell in love with him, thought he was a heck of a player. He committed to Oregon State very early in the process. We respected that commitment, obviously just stayed in touch with him. And when the Oregon State coaching transition occurred, Dameon kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit. We were lucky enough to get back on. I know that there was a commitment to another school between us and them. I think sometimes guys just fear that they're not going to have anything, and in the end, we're very, very excited to have him in our family, and I believe even though on tape he appears at safety, he will play corner for us. We saw him play corner in a camp. We have no doubt that he'll be a really good player. Riley Brand, a 6'1", 215-pound linebacker from Orange Lutheran in Anaheim, down in Orange County. Riley, unfortunately, we offered Riley off of his junior film, off of seeing him in spring workouts as a junior. He came up in the summer, fell in love with the place, and committed, and we were thrilled about it. And then, unfortunately for him, he had a pretty serious foot injury as a senior. A lot of other guys would have shut it down. Riley was very concerned that we were going to bail on him. We never intended that, but that was a concern of his. He rehabbed like a maniac, and he came back and played really what was a meaningless game at the end of his senior year just to prove to us that he was ready to play, and played in an all-star game for the same reason, just to show us that he was ready to play. He will transition from safety in high school to linebacker. I think he'll be just fine, and I'm really impressed with the way he handled the injury situation. Dominic Christian from Chicago, Illinois, from Hales Franciscan, which I believe is the alma mater of JaVale McGee. Did I get that right? So we have some ties back there. Dominic is an explosive athlete. Another incredible job by Lester Erb of pulling what we believe is going to be a dynamic playmaker out of a place where people would say, well, not would say, we're saying, how on earth did they get this guy? Dominic is a tremendous basketball player on a highly ranked state team. Obviously, basketball in Illinois is pretty darn good. He played quarterback, but he'll play wide receiver for us. And if you've checked out his highlights, you can see why. He takes off on some zone run stuff and runs away from everybody. Tremendous kid, great mom and dad. One of the really fun home visits that I made, although I will go on record, Coach Erb is the worst driver on our staff and nearly killed us twice trying to get to the kid's house. But Dominic had Big Ten people knocking down his door at the end. I was with him the whole time. Everybody else came in calling late, and we appreciate his loyalty and his mental toughness, and he wants to be a part of our family, and we're thrilled to have him. Kori Collons, it's Collins, not Collins. Kori Collins from Jesuit High School in Sacramento, California, 6'5", 215, freshman defensive end. This guy's ceiling is through the roof. He is going to be a very big man when it's all said and done. The thing that's most exciting about him, he is very athletic for a 6'5" guy. Gets off on the ball, has really long arms, knows how to rush the passer. I consider Northern California, specifically Sacramento, to be a local recruiting area. So to get a player from a local recruiting area and beat the vast majority of the Mountain West and some Pac-12 schools to get him was fantastic. Really enjoyed he and his mom in the recruiting process, and I think he's going to be a really good player. Wes Farnsworth. This is a very unique guy. Wes has got a skill that is hard to find, and if you don't have one, it'll cost you games. He's one. He is. It's not out of bounds to say that Wes is one of the top 5 or 6 long snappers in the entire country. Hence why he was offered by Washington, Washington State, Ohio State offered this young man a scholarship. Michigan called in the last 3 weeks to see if he'd be interested, and we think the world of him. He'll be impactful not only on special teams, but we're going to give him a chance to try defensive back if he wants to. Great family, and the fact that he was secure enough to say, you know what, I want to stay home. I want to be a part of this. It doesn't matter who else offers me. We are really, really excited about Wes. And again, keep the best players at home, and we're able to do that. Evan Faunce. Evan Faunce is a tight end. He's from Indianapolis, Indiana. A family relationship through Coach Boone is how we discovered Evan. Evan walked down out of high school to Ball State and played tight end at Ball State and went through a growth spurt. When he went to Ball State, he was 6'2" and in the 220s. He went through a growth spurt, transferred to a junior college in Arizona, and he is today 6'4.5", 245 pounds. He is a big, end-of-the-line, physical tight end. He'll be 3 for 3, so it's not just a stopgap. We'll get 3 years with him. And for a big, strong guy, he does catch the ball pretty well, and he addresses a very specific need. Cal Key, that's one that even I said, really, we're going to recruit a guy out of Virginia. But again, it goes back to relationships, and obviously Coach Boone, with all his ties in the Mid-Atlantic from his time at William & Mary, we discovered Cal. Cal transferred high schools between his junior and senior year, and frankly, I think that kind of knocked him off some people's radar. And frankly, I think we got a steal there because he's a 6', 190-pound safety that is a run and hit guy, shows good ball skills. And there were some people at the end, as is always the case in recruiting. There were some people at the end that came calling, but Cal, his mom and his dad stayed in there, hung in there really well, and we appreciate it. And that home visit was a lot of fun because I got to eat some great crab cakes. So long flight, good food. Gannon Laidlaw. Gannon Laidlaw is a guy that we knew about in our summer camp. And this is that guy I talked about that I think Coach Alt would have loved because he can run, he's long, he is 6'5", but his wingspan is 83 inches. So he's got incredibly long arms, which is a big deal for an offensive tackle. He's clay. He's clay. His best days are all in front of him. When we saw him in the summer, he was in the 230s. When he came here on a visit, he weighed in at 268. So those are the kind of big guys that we find, the ones that grow into their body between their junior and senior year. I'm convinced that if this guy was in Cleveland or Dallas, Texas, or L.A. for that matter, the competition to get him would have been much more fierce. And he's got a very bright future. E.J. Muhammad is a corner from Desoto, Texas. Desoto is a powerhouse in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Jim Hoffer did a great job to get this young man. You know, when we recruit from far away, it usually takes a guy who's willing to come see us unofficially. And EJ came with his dad during the summertime and saw us between the summer of his junior and senior year and fell in love with the place and fell in love with the people and committed and stayed true to that commitment all the way through. And what's reported and who really comes calling in the last 2 months of recruiting are usually very different. This guy's phone was ringing off the hook, and he did a fantastic job. It was interesting as we were talking about DBs for that last spot that we have in our pocket right now. We put on EJ's film and we put on Dameon's film just to kind of give us a frame of reference. And it was a lot of fun to put EJ's film back on because I was reminded of what a great player he is. He is a really, really good corner against the best competition in the state of Texas. That was a fun home visit. There were about 25 people in a circle, and Coach Hoffer and I in the middle just taking punches from all sides. But they were a lot of fun. Brendan O'Leary Orange from Toronto, Canada. This will be the second year now after Malcolm Lee last year, and now Brendan O'Leary Orange. We are going into Canada. Honestly, I believe it's a little bit of an untapped recruiting resource. It gave me a reason to fly back east and eat a hot dog in Buffalo before I drove across the border. But 6'4", and he is all of that. He's 205. He is another one where the ceiling is very, very high. When you see him physically for the first time, he's going to remind you of Hassan is who he looks like. And in Mountain West football, if you can't run by them all the time, then it's good to have a big guy that just creates a matchup problem that can go up and get it. And Brendan can do that. Really cool family. Dad is originally from Georgia and was one of the first African-American football players in the history of the Southern Miss football program. He moved to Canada to play in the Canadian Football League and never left, and met Brendan's mom, who's a great lady, and they're just a really cool family. I encouraged him, Maureen, to apply for dual citizenship so we don't have all the international student issues. But really terrific kid. Baylor Romney is a quarterback that we saw on film as a junior and really liked, and we thought his skill set fit our offense very well. He's in El Paso, Texas, which you got to be going to be there. He really, we really liked him off of his spring football as a junior leading into his senior year. And then Baylor and his family came to our Friday Night Lights camp in Vegas, and he was incredible. He ran sub 4.6, and he threw the ball with accuracy and with strength, and we were really impressed. We've signed him today. Baylor intends to take a Mormon mission, which we support fully. Have no problems with it whatsoever, and are very anxious. I told him I want him to be successful. I want it to be a worthwhile experience in his life, but I wish that we could fast forward and get him home tomorrow, but that's not going to be the case. We'll be here waiting for him with open arms when he comes back, and we wish him the best of luck. Hausia Sekona, 6'1", 265-pound offense or defensive lineman. We found House in our West Wendover camp that we went to the farthest reaches of our state, and we got ourselves as close to the Utah border as we could, and we held a camp, and he came out, and he was incredible. He was lightning quick, very powerful, great work ethic, great sense of humor, great demeanor. He was the star of the camp. Everybody loved him. We offered him off of what we saw in the camp, and he committed that summer and has hung in there, even though his hometown school and a bunch of other Pac-12s came hard after him in the last 2 months. He's from Kori Rush's high school, so that relationship obviously helped us a great deal. And I think if if you look with the next guy down, that's 3 Utah guys now in the last 2 years. And frankly, I'm getting to the point where I consider Utah to be our home turf as well, because that's a 6-hour drive, Salt Lake City specifically, and we want to keep recruiting there as much as we can because we're finding great players in the state of Utah. Gabe Sewell, linebacker, 6 foot 230 from St. George, Utah, which is actually a 2-hour drive from Las Vegas. And I didn't know this until I did it. You actually go through Arizona before you get into Utah, and the clock changes. And somebody needs to tell Coach Rolovich that, because we showed up an hour late for the home visit because my man was unaware that we were switching time zones. But the Sewell family, tremendous people. It came down to us and a Pac-12 opponent, and we were able to win that battle. And I think he's going to be a great player and has a chance to be impactful early in his career. 6 foot 230, run and hit, football instincts, played all over the field at his high school. Wonderful player, wonderful player. Derek Stom. Derek Stom was the one mid-year JUCO that we did sign. Derek, I felt like we needed to add one more veteran to the offensive line, specifically the interior offensive line, the 2 guards in the center position. I felt like we needed one more mature body in there. Derek actually wanted to come here out of high school, but tried to be recruited as a defensive lineman and didn't quite fit the bill. He went to the U.S. Military Prep School, which is located near West Point. It feeds into West Point. Discovered that after 6 months that the military life was not for him, but that is a prep year. It did not count against his clock. So he then went to Diablo Valley, and so we get him, and he is like Faunce. He is 3 for 3. So, I've said before I don't want to make a living in the junior colleges, but I look at these guys a little bit differently. When they come in with 3 years of eligibility, it kind of changes your perspective on it. And Derek will give us immediate depth. The reviews for Derek in the weight room in the short time he's been with us have been extremely positive. He's very strong. He moves pretty well. The guys like him. He's been a really good fit, and we're lucky we have him. And then the last guy to talk about is Ricky Thomas Jr. Unfortunately, Coach Thomas is not here to celebrate this day. His mother-in-law passed back in Alabama. He had to leave us on Sunday to go be with his wife Kim and the family to tend to that loss. Ricky Jr. is a local, played at McQueen, finished school early, enrolled here in January. I laughed the first team meeting we had. We had our newcomer stand up, and boy, does he look like a baby compared to the rest of them. I'm not sure he's shaven yet, but when you watch his film, he's incredibly athletic. He can run. He's very versatile. There's no doubt in my mind that he belongs here. There were other Mountain West schools recruiting him before he decided to make the commitment. We kept Ricky Sr. out of the recruitment. It was me. I was Ricky Jr.'s recruiting coach, and I dealt with Miss Kim, which is no walk in the park. She's a very strong lady. Ricky decided on his own that this is where he wanted to be. I think it's unique. I think it's cool. I think, to get to play college football and come to the building every day and have your dad there is a pretty neat deal. So that's our recruiting class. And the last thing I want to say before we I'll take all the questions you want, but there have been some articles this week. I think Chris has written a couple things this week that I think were just fantastic and encapsulate what I believe we are. And that's in this day and age of recruiting, and how flashy can you be, and how glitzy can you be, and how many new things can you show us, and really in a world of fluff where a lot of that stuff really doesn't matter. I believe you win with people. And the battles that we won this year that people look at and say, how'd you win that one? To a T, if you ask the kids, they'll tell you, I just felt at home. I felt like it was a family atmosphere. I felt like I was going to be cared for. I felt like I was going to be loved. And that's who we are. We win with people, not with stuff. And I'm very proud of that. And I'm very proud of this class and the way that we put it together. And I think that all the kids that decided to sign here for all the right reasons. And it wasn't because of the size of the locker room. And it wasn't because, we had 25 flat screens in the weight room or because, we put their face on a video game cover. Because while that stuff is neat, in the end, it's not really that important. It's more about people. And the best ambassadors of our program are our own student athletes. And the amount of guys that came back off official visits and said, your team is just tremendous, and the feedback that we got from our parents, we're indebted to our own guys for the job that they did in recruiting. So National Signing Day is like the opening day of spring training. Hope springs eternal. Everybody's undefeated. Every guy that we signed is going to be an all-conference player and all that fun stuff. But I am really excited about this class. I like these guys. And like I said, we're not done yet. We still have a little work to do. So with that, I'll take any questions that anybody might have, which means you, Chris, now that Dan's gone.
What is the thing that most excites you about this guy?
I think there are a couple of guys that do have a chance to come in and have an immediate impact, and we will give them the opportunity to do that. I think over the last 2 years we've played 28 either redshirt or true freshmen. So we've proven that if you're good enough and you beat somebody out, that will play you. And I do believe that there are a handful in this class that are good enough to help us immediately. The overarching theme is I just like them as people. I really do. I mean, if you followed Gabe Sewell through his recruitment and watched what he was talking about, what he was putting out there, if you followed, any number of guys, EJ, not Dameon happened fast at the end, but I mean, these guys that we had been married to for a long time, and the way that they handled the process and the way their families were, it was a lot of fun. I mean, this, like I said, it's nice to come out of a signing day and not feel icky, and this group was a lot of fun to be around.
When you look at this class for your first two, how do they compare?
Well, obviously the numbers are a little bit different. Just we didn't sign, 24, 25, 26 guys. But that's okay. I mean, part of that was by design with the gray shirt guys last year. I feel like we're building a really solid foundation. I want to compete for a Mountain West Conference championship. I mean, that's what we can control. I can't get up here and say, hey, I want to win a national championship. That's something like that is really out of our control. I want to compete for a Mountain West Conference championship. We got a little bit better this year. We're not nearly close enough. But I think in order to do that, we have to have a really solid foundation of high character, good players year after year after year. Because the Alabamas and the Florida States of the world, they can change their program in one recruiting class. They can add 10 five-star guys that have the ability to be impactful immediately. That doesn't happen very much at our level. We have to build it. It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. And you got to build it with one strong class on top of another. And I think we have done that for 2 years in a row now. And that's not being disrespectful to the first class, but when you have 3 weeks to get one together, you're just doing the best that you can. And the way that I look at that now is anybody that out of that first class that ends up being a big-time contributor and a good guy, that's just a bonus. I mean, this is really our second true class, and I feel really good about the foundation that we're laying to move forward and get this thing back to where everybody wants it to be.
So, you look at the linebackers in particular, maybe not the most height. Were you going for speed over size again?
Yeah, I want to just Gabe Sewell. We were recruiting some guys that were 6'2", 6'3". I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not like I'm choosing to be shorter, but I'm not going to sacrifice athleticism. And you look at a guy like Gabe Sewell, I don't care how tall Gabe Sewell is. You can't walk away from him. I don't believe in the Mountain West you can. Maybe USC can say, you know what, he's talented, but we need 3 inches taller. They probably can. But as I evaluated somebody like Gabe Sewell, at some point you just got to say, you know what, this guy's a hell of a football player. And he's really physical and he can run. So, he's not 6'3". I can live with that. I think Ricky's quick and he's tall enough. And Riley Brand, when you look at Riley Brand, you can see the emphasis there is on athleticism and a guy that can play in space because you're moving a safety up. But it's the right move. There's no doubt in my mind. yes, I believe you got to build your team from the inside out. That's just my philosophy. Now, other people might differ, but I believe that you got to have a quarterback, and you got to be able to win on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, and that's what we're trying to address. And I think, I wish House was 6'3", but he's 6 foot. That's probably why the Pac-12s weren't on him immediately. I think it's their mistake, because I've been, I think his quickness and his power and those things kind of make up for that. So, Corey Collins, I think, is going to be a heck of a player, and I think he's going to look like a freak in 2 years after Manogue and the boys have had him. I mean, he's gangly and skinny at 6'5", 215. You watch him rush the passer, you get really excited, and they think, oh, my God, what's this guy going to look like when he's 265? We need to get him on the Austin Corbett eating plan, but I think, we're building. I believe you have to build from the inside out, and if I can get a good player in the line of scrimmage, I'm always going to defer there first. So.
You have your 6 players who are at HS or Power 5 offers that are coming to Nevada. Does that number surprise you, or is that what you expected to go?
Oh, I don't think it's fair to say you could expect that. I'm excited about it. This is 2 years in a row. And I also think when on signing day a player doesn't choose your school, but he's picking between an ACC school, a Pac-12 school, and yours, I think you're in the right fights. And I'm pleased with that. I know we can't plan on that. We can't count on that. I think it goes back to picking the fights that you have a chance to win. And we discovered pretty quickly with Gabe Sewell, he was wired like we want him wired. I mean, he is a great person. The size of the locker room didn't matter to Gabe Sewell. He was looking for the right education. He was looking for the right community. He was looking for the right fit. And when you discover guys like that, you have a chance to win the fight, and let's go fight it. You're not going to win them all, but we'll go fight it. When the guy walks in and says, this is it, this is your locker room, or, how many pairs of Nikes do I get? Or, when their focus is on those things, we're not going to win those battles, and we're not going to waste our time with them. But, I mean, it's hard not to be excited when you're in a Mountain West school and you sign 6 guys that could have gone to the Pac-12 or the ACC or to other places.
Does that actually happen? Recruits come in on campus and all kind of...
There's nothing that doesn't happen in recruiting. Just follow Twitter on signing day. I mean, I said this last year. It's no joke. I mean, the hat game, when guys get up and they don't tell the school and you got to watch television, and a dude picks up you've invested a year and a half of your life. You've walked away from your kids to go be with this guy, and he picks up your hat and throws it on the ground. I mean, the craziness of recruiting, the social media part of it, the guys, I mean, we're recruiting guys that'll be like, Coach, I'll tell you on signing day. Like, wait, man, we're Nevada. This isn't USC against Oklahoma in a recruiting battle. It's not as though there's not another corner behind you that wouldn't take it immediately, So the craziness of recruiting is nuts. I mean,
do they kind of sneer though, like on the social media side of things, or do they actually sneer while they're talking to you and looking at stuff?
We had a relationship with a player that we thought was very strong. It came down to us and another school. I was informed by a direct message on Twitter. After 2 years of recruiting a guy, I got a message in 140 characters or less that he wasn't coming. I don't mind that he didn't pick my school. I'm okay with that. That's recruiting. But you would think the parents would say, you know what? You owe it to these coaches to pick up the phone, start to act like a grown-up, and have a difficult conversation, because that's what men do. They sit down and have difficult conversations and say, hey, Coach, you know what? I'm not coming. I wish you the best of luck. Trust me, that's recruiting. But I saw today a player decommitted from Missouri and went to LSU and did it via Twitter. Hashtag decommit. Sorry, Mizzou, headed to LSU. And that's how the Missouri staff found out. It's getting nuts. It's getting crazy. And some of this stuff is an unfortunate byproduct of what we're doing. And I think most of our guys were not wrapped up in a lot of that stuff. Hey, look, this is a great time in their lives, and they're getting attention and recognition, and they deserve that, and there's nothing wrong with enjoying it. but you got to be able to handle it the right way. And I think we see a lot of examples of guys who don't.
When you look at just the class announced today, not their gracious, 9 of the 15 are on the defensive side of the ball. Was that kind of the focus if you wanted to add a lot of depth to that side of the ball, knowing that you had those gracious already?
I think this year was kind of interesting in the sense that we had some very specific needs that we had to address, and then once we addressed them, we kind of went into general manager mode. Okay, you have a draft pick. What are you taking? Are you taking just to even out the numbers, or are you taking the best player available on the board? And there were some guys that, frankly, probably early in the process, we didn't know we did. Dameon Baber's committed to Oregon State. Okay, we lost him. He's in the Pac-12. Let's move on. Things happen. You reach out, and he says, yeah, I have interest. I'm not walking away. I'll find a way. I'll find a scholarship. I'm not walking away from him. He's too good a kid and too good a player. You know, had we filled up at linebacker, I would have found a way to take Gabe Sewell. You know, so it was just kind of one of those deals where we found some players that maybe the model didn't fit perfectly in terms of where we were going to shift the scholarships around, but there were guys that you simply did not want to walk away from. And you can't do that all the time, but this was a year that we were able to do that. And we're still trying to even out the numbers, but I think we're much closer than we were standing here 2 years ago. So,
where are you right now as far as defense?
you had to ask that, didn't you? I want to be at 41, 41, and 3, and we're probably too heavy on offense still, but we're getting closer. And frankly, we won't be at when we start in the fall, we will not be at 85 scholarships. It's hard to do with attrition, and you know, I think we might be at 81, 82 when we report back in the summer when all the freshmen are here, and that's okay.
You said the last two, one will go to a defensive back, one will go for a defensive lineman. Is that the thought at this point?
Yes, that is my thought at this point, that if it's not a defensive back specifically, it will be a skilled athlete. It will be somebody on the perimeter. And then the upfront scholarship that I've got still in my pocket is going to be an interior defensive lineman. It won't be an end. It's going to be a tackle. And again, I'm open to all scenarios there. You know, high school guys probably unlikely because defensive linemen are too hard to find. You're not going to find a good one just out there. Specifically not for us because we ask more of our student athletes academically than other places do. So often when there's a guy out there, it's because he needs a test in May or June to qualify. A late qualifier is not going to probably fit the bill for us. So I'm going to be looking in prep schools. I'm going to be looking in junior colleges, and I've not dabbled in this fifth-year transfer stuff, but I think this would be the one position that we'd be open to it, and we're actively reaching out to friends in the football community to see if anybody's looking for a home. So,
like your new camps, I mean, you got a lot of players.
Camps are a really big deal. You know, places like Notre Dame, Texas A&M, where I've worked, camps were not only a recruiting tool, but they're a way to augment the coaches' salaries, because Notre Dame camp, there's 1 million kids that grew up wanted to go to Notre Dame. I mean, the camp numbers are huge, and you make a nice check at the end of the summer. We're not in it to make money for the coaches. We'd like to, but that's not natural at a place like ours. We don't have a gigantic population within a 2-hour drive. You know, it doesn't fit naturally. So we have simply taken we've taken the approach that we're going to use it specifically for recruiting, and if the coaches end up making a couple $100 at the end of the summer, then so be it. But it is a recruiting tool. That's the reason we take them on the road. This is multiple years now. We've signed players coming out of the Vegas camp. We'll continue to do that. I don't think Bishop Gorman's going to allow us back on their field, but we'll find somebody else that will. I think the Wendover camp was a great idea. We got a lot of players to come over from Salt Lake City to do that. You know, the other thing we've been doing is partnering with other programs in other states. Cliff Kingsbury was kind enough to let us tag along with Texas Tech on a couple of spots in Texas. I mean, we're just places that probably look at us and say, we're not going to recruit against them. So, you know, and they should probably feel that way most times. But our deal is how many kids can we see in the summer? Because the single best evaluation you get is putting your hands on them. and coaching them and learning their personalities and demeanors. And there's no doubt in the last 2 years that those camps have paid dividends because we have discovered players in those camps.
When it comes to transforming the recruiting footprint of this program, how close are you to where you want to be?
I'd say we've probably reached further than I want to reach. I mean, I know we're not going to make a living in Virginia, but it's relationship driven. And I do think because we have such good people here, parents come and they feel comfortable. I think when Matt Moen and James Butler and Kendall Johnson have success as freshmen and are very happy and repeat that back to people, I think it makes guys from farther away feel a little bit more comfortable. To me, our local area is Northern Nevada and our state. It's then Sacramento and Northern California, the Bay Area, and then it's the Valley and Salt Lake City. To me, are our local areas. It's got to start there first. Then we'll venture into Southern California. Then we'll venture to Arizona, the Pacific Northwest. But when you have a guy like Lester Erb, who everybody in the city of Chicago who's involved in high school football knows and respects and trusts, we get calls that say, hey, would you be interested in this guy? And you end up with James Butler, and you end up with Dominic Christian. And then you have Ron Hudson has relationships in Louisiana, and you end up with Kendall Johnson. And I'm not going to walk away from those guys, but I know I'm not going to make a living there either. Look, the other thing about this, and I've said it multiple times, the world has shrunk. When I was in college, if I was missing my parents or anybody else, I had to pick up a phone that had a cord. I had to punch in numbers, and at the end of the month, there was a bill that was delivered to my dorm room. I had to pay a long-distance bill. When these guys miss their families, they pick up an iPhone, press a button, and they're looking at each other. You know, FaceTime and Skype and the just gigantic explosion of cable sports television. 75% of our games in the last 5 years you can find on television. So the days of my son can't go far away because I'll never see him play, that's over. Look, I'm no dummy either. I mean, Colin Kaepernick's success put our university's name in front of a lot of people that would not have known it otherwise, and it has sparked interest that may not have existed before. And frankly, I think our people in our school, when we get young men and their families to come here and take a look, we exceed expectations every time. I've never had a guy walk away from here and say, you know what, Coach, I was disappointed. I expected more. They always say, you know what, this was so much better than I ever thought it was going to be. We don't get them all, but we always exceed expectations. So I think the recruiting world has changed a little bit. Now, I know we always got to start at home, but we can't be afraid to go where we have relationships either.
Coach, how has it changed or benefited your recruiting now that you and largely your staff have been here a couple of years?
I think the continuity's helped. It's interesting. There's no doubt the continuity's helped. There's no doubt that I have a much better understanding of what our challenges are and what our strengths are, and we try very hard to play to our strengths. I have a much better idea how everything works, and I think that's natural. First-time head coach or not, you have to be familiar with your place, and we are much more familiar now and know how to attract and what we're looking for and who we think would be attracted to us. The continuity is a big deal. I'm glad as we sit here today we've had no changes on the staff, and I'm excited about that. I feel good about that. I will say this, the one thing that keeps coming up in negative recruiting against us is, hey, if they keep winning, he ain't going to be there. And you know, if they keep winning, Rolo's going to be the head coach at Hawaii someday. And you know, and if that's what's being used against you, then you've probably got it going in the right direction. So we heard that a lot. Clearly, those people have not read my contract and know the buyout. So that's not an issue. And we're very happy, and our staff is very happy. We're blessed. We come to work every day, and we're surrounded by great kids on our team and guys that are a lot of fun to work with upstairs. So, anything else?
Outside of recruiting, if I could, this was kind of a big weekend for your family. I'm just curious.
It was incredible, and again, I thought Chris did a great job of capturing it. He and I spoke in January before all this was really starting to happen. But it's this honor from my father is just incredible, and we are so proud as a family. And the one thing that ought to be mentioned publicly is that this is as much an honor for my mother as it is my father, because when she married a high school history teacher. That's what she thought she was marrying, and you know, then to raise 4 children, and in the youth of our lives, she was running the show, because as he was trying to move his way up the ladder and build the Bills and the Carolina Panthers, that was a very demanding job that kept him away from home. And my mother did an incredible job of raising 4 kids and putting houses together in states and different countries, and you know, it's you know, Chris is right. I'm never at a loss for words, but this one is hard to articulate as to what it means. It's also a big deal to Ian Sewell and his family to see Junior go in as a first ballot Hall of Famer. I know how much that means to the Sewell family, and I think it's pretty unique that here we are in the Mountain West, and we've got 2 guys in one football program that have direct ties to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. There's less than 300 people enshrined. That is the elite fraternity of football, and I'm going to have to schedule around the induction, because I wouldn't miss it for the world. So you know, Coach Hoffer might be running one of those training camp practices, so we'll see how it goes. So, all good? Thank you so much, guys.